Michael doesn't come on time, you can appoint on the P. Zilbob's not here.
Only if it passes. Okay. Wait till the official posted time.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can have a, like, I guess that's a concern to speak to. I mean, I'm not concerned because it's the one, that's just the only place it's allowed is on that one site. You know? I understand the concern.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, June 4th, 2019 at 6 p.m. We have present tonight Councilman Podeska, Councilman Wilden, Councilman McComber, Councilwoman Barch, and Councilman Porter. We do have a quorum. I've asked that Councilman Wilden lead us in our invocation and Councilman Podeska lead us in our pledge this evening.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we're able to be gathered here this evening as leaders of the community and to review plans and make decisions for the long-term betterment of our neighbors and our friends in our city. And we ask you to bless us this evening. We'll be able to make good decisions and we'll be able to build positive relationships with all throughout the city. And these things we say in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will everyone please rise and repeat the pledge after me? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, comments for subject matter not listed on this agenda. As a reminder, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the public record. Please avoid repetitive comments and please be respectful in your comments. Is anybody here for public input?
I hesitate to speak because, as Mayor Miller knows, it gets me in trouble. I just wanted to express a concern. I attended the last Planning Commission meeting, and where item number 1 on tonight's agenda was on the Planning Commission agenda. And I was a bit concerned because it was my understanding that the Planning Commission had approved the community plan, which said that this project would not be subject to the dark skies ordinance. And then as discussion came up, several members of that commission insisted that there be some considerations given that the applicant go back and meet with the city and change the height of the light poles and the shape of the light fixtures and the hours that the lights would be on, so on and so forth. And even though the city planner reminded them that they had already approved the community plan that said that the dark skies ordinance would be exempt from this project, they still insisted on passing that item with those conditions attached to it. And I found that very confusing, number one, but I hope that the original plan will be brought to the council tonight and that it will be approved without all of the extra folderol that was added in. I felt like it was a bait and switch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public input this evening? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input. As I discussed with our acting city manager, Owen Wilson, I'm going to jump to business item 1. We get to pick on him tonight. Oh, OJ, DJ, we got them all. We don't have one for you yet, Kevin. Terminator. Okay. Okay.
No reports or anything? Jump
We're going to skip.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mayor and Council, this is a request tonight for the Beacon Point Village Plan 1B approval. Now, what the Beacon Point Village Plan is, this is the now announced temple site for the Saratoga Springs Temple. You see the property outlined in blue. This is everything within the sidewalks. There's actually no public property as part of this village plan. Everything's internal now. The streets and whatnot, that was handled with Village Plan 1A. So the property we're looking at tonight, again, it's the zone, the planned community mixed use, or excuse me, it's land use, the general plan land use. And then the zone is planned community. We're looking at just about 22 acres on this village plan. And the total building ERUs, there's three buildings proposed on site. That would encompass about 51 ERUs out of the DAP. It's the special project site, as it's referred to. If you recall in the DAP, this is considered all an open space type, the special project type. And so what we have here is the entire 22 acres is considered open space as far as the DAP goes. The community plan also identifies this property as being the traditional neighborhood place type. Any development within the planned community zone has to be given a neighborhood place type. And this is the traditional neighborhood place. The open space plan, as you see here, I've blown up the little legend there on the left so you can see it. Basically, the east is what you see will be on the top of your screen. That's kind of that hillside as it comes down. That would be as designated special project landscaping area. The interior, where you see in the tan color, has the interior open space, basically parking lots, landscaping, lighting, those types of things, pedestrian connections. And then the outer perimeter, which you see, which again is technically not in this village plan, but it's the park strips that surround the project itself, would be would take up the 10-foot walking trail, and then what would be the public open space. These are some of the landscape examples. Again, the top left there, that would be on the east side as you're coming up Founders Boulevard. That would be the little hillside below the temple. And there's some examples there here in these other pictures here of just sample of what the parking lot landscaping would look like. These are then the fencing and the lighting proposals. If you recall, the light you see there on the left, that's kind of the standard light that's been used in other community plans. That's basically the same light that's in the crossing. They're proposing to use that light in the parking lot here as well. The light then you see in the middle, that would be then along some of the pedestrian areas, and then the lower bollard lighting along some of the walkways as well. Fence types you see here, basically wrought iron style fencing, could have some concrete columns as well. And then an example of what the trash enclosure, the refuge enclosure would look like. The village plan is not required to have building elevations. It does have to have design guidelines. So these are the design guidelines here we have for the three buildings. Building 1 would be the temple. Building 2 would be a chapel or stake center building, and then building 3 would then be a maintenance building to house all the equipment needed to use to maintain the landscape and whatnot around the entire site. So this gives some of the standards of what it's to be. We don't, again, know what it's going to look like yet. That will come at the site plan stage, but this just gives some of the standards that would apply to those sites and those buildings. This is again, lighting was a concern at the Planning Commission. This here is the community plan. Out of the community plan, the lighting, and just to take note of what's highlighted in the yellow. Says the special project site is the only open space exempt from the dark sky initiative where uplighting may be used if developed as an ecclesiastical use. So uplighting can be used anywhere else in the city, obviously. That's a city standard. All the lighting has to be downlighting. So the uplighting is currently permitted in Village Plan 1B. Some of the Planning Commission concerns that were brought up was the dark side compliant temple lighting would be on all night. It was discussed other temples. They do shut down lighting at times. It's not all on every night, throughout the night. Commissioner brought up lighting glare into adjacent development, an example of a child of his that has some issues with bright lights and had a concern that there may be some others that may have an issue with that. Building height, again, I don't know if there's a whole lot that can be discussed on the building height. It's been approved as and planned for a temple. Temples are tall. The parking lot lighting is not a bell and arm structure. Again, community plans, you can vary from the standards. The crossing is a perfect example. It's used that standard light, which has the picture I've shown earlier. Again, outside a community plan, the standard bell and arm is the typical parking lot light. And no period of time when the parking lot lights are off. So with that, the Planning Commission gave their recommendation to approve the village plan. However, they wanted SLR to meet with, and the church to meet with staff. So we met with the plan, with SLR and LEI on, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday last week, and to go over some of the issues. So the applicant then did make some changes to the village plan. And these are the changes that we see here in red now. So instead of having 20-foot lights in the parking lot, they've now dropped those down to 16 feet. That was a request of the Planning Commission. The parking lot lights will then be dimmed 50% between the hours of 11 and 4 a.m. The applicant can build on why they so like to have some lighting throughout the night there. They do say we can put motion detectors on the lights, that they can trip then if needed on those. And then under the section variances, Title 19, they took out the 20-foot high pole lights, so they're just requesting that the pedestrian poles are not cut off and that the building flood lighting will be utilized, and flood lighting will be aimed towards the building, which we already understand anyway with the exempt from the dark skies. They can go ahead and do that on the building. The recommended motion then from the Planning Commission, it was a 5-0 motion to approve, to recommend approval to the City Council of the request. And of course, the council always has the option to continue or deny the request.
Would the applicant like to come up to answer any questions or add anything to that before the council starts discussion?
My name is Nate Walter. I'm with LEI Engineers. I helped in the compilation of this village plan. Do you need to know address, all that information? No? Okay. Just to touch base on a little bit of what we discussed, that on the east end will be about approximately 4 acres in size of that open space. That'll be open and manicured with trails, trees. It's to be determined exactly how that's going to be laid out, but you can see the generalities of how that looks. The remaining 2 acres, there's about 6 acres total of open space. The remaining 2 acres will be spread out sporadically throughout the parking lot and around buildings. And then you can see also that there's major transportation or pedestrian corridors that we have planned through there. With the lighting just planned that parking lot lighting will obviously be placed within the parking lot. The pedestrian lighting will be placed along those major pedestrian corridors, and the remaining smaller sized trails will be lighted by bollards. So that one thing that we wanted to make sure though is that's understood is the fencing that's planned for the site will be placed approximately or adjacently next to the temple site. So majority or almost all of the open space will be accessible to the public. So in addition to that, we just want to make sure the city staff has been very helpful through this process. They've been very accommodating and helpful. Every time we've been needed to ask a question or get some clarification, they've been very responsive, so I want to thank them for that.
I'll just add a word or two. James Rich with Special Projects from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just express gratitude for your having us here tonight. We are grateful, reiterate what Nate said. for the warm reception we've received with the city staff and the commissions and the city council. We're grateful for how cooperative they've been in the process. We're hopeful that this project will really become a great focal point for the city and a great asset and a really positive development that will over time be a great asset for the city. And have made an effort to address the things that the commission asked and also just in general create a project that will be very positive and accessible and a nice amenity to the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Wilden.
Thank you. Well, number one, I'm very excited to see this plan here. I'm sure many in the city are. Just from a resident aspect, I think it'll be a great addition to our community. And then just going through the staff report, it's always phenomenal to see a whole bunch of complies or can comply, which means it will at the next level. So I think it's a very well done plan. I don't have any concerns with what you presented, but one thing I'd like to point out is I'm very grateful for our city attorney and our city planning director who corrected the planning commission the errors of their ways. We made a legislative decision, and I want them to make sure that they know that their role is to not legislate. It is to fulfill and verify that they are complying with the legislative decisions we've made. And perhaps that wasn't their intent, but that's not how the motions read. So thank you, Kevin and David, for correcting them. And if the planning commissioners are watching, I just want them to be reminded that their purpose is to make sure we're complying with code. They can do planning and propose changes to code, but that shouldn't be forced on an existing developer who is already operating under existing code. So I'm not going to say any more about that. I think I've made my point fairly clear. But thank you, Kevin and David, for correcting them, and I'm completely comfortable with this plan. Thank you.
Councilman McComber.
So I would like to reiterate what you just said. I think that absolutely agreed. We have training, and obviously we do training on a regular basis to try and remind, but the Planning Commission does amazing work. We really appreciate all that they do, but they are a recommending body based on the decisions that we make as a council. And so I just wanted to remind that too, as well as the recommending body. To the plan here, I have no real issues whatsoever. I mean, it's pretty knowledgeable what we're going to be getting, something along those lines. I just wanted to make sure that the 20-foot to the 16, is that something that you really want to do? Because I think it can tell you, I'm one of 5, but I have a feeling you're going to get the support of the council that you do what you want to do. So a 20-foot lighting in the parking lot, is that something you would prefer? Or is the 16, or was that just a concession to the Planning Commission, which I think overstepped their bounds? So.
Thanks for that. We looked at that and we did a lighting analysis and worked with our consultants on that, and we're equally happy with the 16-foot with the 20. It's a few more fixtures. One of the reasons we did the 20 was that we had fewer fixtures, and so whether that adds a net amount of greater light for purposes of the neighborhood, I'm not sure. I think it's 6s, but we're happy either way. So if 16 is okay with the city, we can certainly live with that.
So, obviously 16 is great, and I knew it was going to be more fixtures because you have a parking lot you have to light, and so you're actually putting off the same amount of light. And one of the things that's nice about this development versus some of your others, when you have a special project, is every single home that's going in and around this building will know what's going here, where in some cases that's not the case, even Payson, right? And others, you had to deal with a lot more existing homes. I know the homes along the benches in the hills, they've all been praying that this would be the site for over 10 years. So I think that you're probably okay with most of the people along there, at least the 20 or so families that I've talked to that live closest to where the temple will be. And in terms of the next point, so if you're okay, I guess, that's fine, the 16, I think that it will actually make it sometimes easier to get even lighting when you have more fixtures. I have no problem with the bollards and the walkway lighting whatsoever. In terms of of dimming the parking lot lights. From a security perspective, is that something that you want to be doing, dimming the parking lights, or was that something you would prefer to leave at full strength through the night?
So we would have preferred to have no concession there, I think, and just have the flexibility. I mean, the reality is it's a fairly large lot, and with the combination of the two buildings, with the temple and the chapel, I mean, it's quite a number of acres of parking. We don't really need to light it at full strength all night. So the idea of dimming all or a portion of it was something that we felt was palatable if we could work with the city and meet their desires. Obviously, not being encumbered by that requirement gives us a little bit more flexibility to operate it as we see fit. One of the reasons we need it lit during the night, as far as parking and pedestrian walks, is because there's very little time during the night when there's not somebody there. It starts, 4:30 in the morning. Generally, workers come, and then operates all day, and then the custodial staff works there at night, usually
I've
till
even
about
been there
1:30
at
in the morning.
midnight.
So they're
at
late.
temples, right? I mean,
Right.
even non-staff people are going to be there in the
Right.
evenings cleaning, right? I
Right.
mean, so we clean every night.
Sure. The reality is they're not going to be parking on all of that parking.
No,
That's a
just
small
part of
subset
it.
of people. And so we'd like to, of course, keep it illuminated where they're going to park near the temple and make sure that when they come out, even if they had parked far away, that they don't have to walk through the dark to get to their car.
Yeah.
And
So I personally, as one, I would prefer to allow you, your business. I don't like calling it a business, but I mean, if we have a parking lot, a grocery store, and they have a lot of people, they can light it how they see fit. I mean, some will lower it at night as they see fit, and we work with them. I would rather allow you the freedom to do what you think is best, that's going to create the best in terms of safety for pedestrians, et cetera, but then also just safety for the structures and having that lighting so that there aren't dark spots or places that people could potentially hide. The worst thing would have somebody be hurt or get hurt as a result, even tripping hazard, if you would. So I'm one of 5, but I would prefer to allow you to have the flexibility. You're good stewards. You're going to lower the lighting when you can, especially probably like 1 to 4 kind of thing when everyone is pretty much gone except security and staff at that point. But allow you that flexibility as appropriate. And then in terms of the uplighting, I, again, would allow you the flexibility. I don't think that this isn't Portland, Oregon, where I know there was a lot of issues around the lighting and a lot of dimming at night, being on I think it was the I-215 there. And so cars coming around with all the trees, they didn't see the temple. And when they came around, the temple was so bright at night, it was so striking that people were throwing on their brakes to look at it. And so there was a safety issue. That's not what we're going to be dealing with here because we don't have 300-foot trees in Saratoga Springs, right? I mean, if we do, Shelley will tell you we just cut them down like they did over on Old Saratoga Road. So she was really bitter about that. That's an inside joke. But so I would rather, light it how you see fit and how you think will create the best image going forward for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and for your project and allow you that flexibility and freedom.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Wilden, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a follow-up. Can you hit my mic? Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up, I totally spaced those other things. I was so focused on my other comment. Totally supportive of what Councilmember McComber's statement. So you got 2 out of 5 on that. I just forgot to say it. So you said it much better than I would have. I would have been like lighting.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, Councilwoman Barch.
So first of all, I'm grateful to see this coming forward. To have this moving in a rapid manner is great. Glad to have this opportunity for our city, along with other opportunities that are coming forward. I actually want to say also that I appreciate the applicant being willing to drop the light height and to dim the lights where possible. I agree with Councilman McComber that you don't have to do it everywhere, because there are going to be times where we have people at their late hours, but that's one of the things that we can do to help make a nicer situation for those that are around, but also to make sure that we have a good project. I do actually want to thank the Planning Commission. So their job is to scrutinize the code. So I actually disagree with the other council members, because depending on, I'm a very letter of the law person, and the way I read this, we exempted it from the uplighting standards and not from the dusk to dawn and not to some of the other standards. So being one of five, being a very letter of the law person, I totally get where the planning commission is coming from. They scrutinized it, that's the way they read the code. If you read it, letter of the law, that's what the actual code says. So, that's fine, it's my time to type right now. And I said that I was one of five, so back off, thanks. But that being said, I am one of five. And so, I am grateful for the opportunity that we have to be a full council where we have differing opinions. And we make a better product because of it, so that's that part of it. Also, as to the lighting types, because it was mentioned the fact that there weren't bell shades in the parking lots and things like that, I assume that you know the style of the temple that's going to be built and that's going to enhance that, and that makes sense. I did have one question for staff or for whomever. There was a mention in there that the city would be maintaining the public lights. I assume that's on the actual street itself, on the outer areas? Okay. And that's something that we've talked about where we use the same lights, so we have ease of maintenance and replacement parts and things like that, so that makes total sense. But within the parking lot, it makes sense that you have your style that you're going for, and so I trust that you know what you're doing on that one. Also, then, I just want to say thank you. I don't know of very many temples that have that much open space completely open to the public like that. That's not going to be fenced. I think that's pretty unusual. And that's going to be a great amenity for not just those immediately adjacent to, but for anybody who wants to come and enjoy a great landscaped, open space trail area. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Okay. Councilman Porter.
I would, I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that have been expressed from everybody. I think that, I appreciate, again, the open space, the public open space that'll be nearby. I think that will be a great amenity. I would also agree with what was stated, is that in a somewhat, not totally unique, this happens sometimes, but in a somewhat unique instance, everybody that moves in next to this site will know exactly what they're getting. And if they're concerned about the lighting, then I think they might want to choose to live somewhere else. So I'm okay with the changes that you chose to make. If you would prefer to go back to the, giving you a little bit more freedom for how to do the lighting, I think that your plan and the fact that you were willing to make those changes shows that you're willing to consider doing what works best. So I'm comfortable going either passing it as currently proposed, or if we want to change it back to allow a little bit more freedom, I'm okay with that too. I would, again, as Councilwoman Barsh said, we all have, one of the joys of working in this type of format is that we all have different opinions about things. Quite often we disagree on some stuff. As Councilwoman Barsh said, she's very letter of the law, and I can see how she could read it that way. When I reviewed and approved this, my understanding was that the dusk till dawn was not going to be, that was part of the exemption. And so I would feel like I was changing my mind if I were to go back and say, well, now you have to dim it from dusk till dawn. So I am comfortable moving forward because we're getting what I thought we were getting. Is there anything else? I don't think there was anything else. I found it somewhat amusing that amongst all this that we got to look at what the trash enclosure is going to look like. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to looking at some more interesting architectural plans in the near future.
Coming.
Yes.
Just one quick comment. So I agree. If you're reading the language in the community plan and you're making a legal interpretation of the language, there is some wiggle room there. So it sounds like the council is moving in the direction of removing any of those restrictions. I would suggest that you clarify that in the village plan, that language, that there are no restrictions as far as uplighting, hours of operation. Make sure you clarify that here, because at some point in the future there's going to be a complaint. I mean, the number two, I think it's pretty obvious to everyone in the room, the two things that people are going to complain about are height and lighting, right? So make sure you clarify that in the village plan. And another thing you can do too, and this was, I believe, mentioned by Councilmember Wilden, was put a note on the plat. So that removes any ambiguity whatsoever. And not just a note on the plat, but about the lighting, but talk about the hours of operation and the uplighting and anything related to that. And we can get really specific in that plat note.
Okay. Councilman Podeska.
Well, this is exciting to see the plan progressing, to finally get into some design aspects of it, as we've all, and you as well, been waiting a long time to get to this point. So it's great to see it. We look forward to more future plans. I do want to throw in my support on how the council voted last time on sticking with that for the village plan, as Kevin mentioned, for the dark sky ordinance to be lifted for that area. And then also leaving it to your discretion on the flexibility for the lighting. You're aware of when people are going to be there, and I know you're going to be great neighbors. I'd be just as excited for this type of facility coming in if there's another religion. It builds communities to bring these things in, and so I just really support things that help strengthen those that live within our area and neighboring cities. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councilman O'Connor, you had a question?
I'd like to make the motion, if you're ready.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to move that we approve Beacon Point Village Plan 1B, James Rich Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints applicant, ordinance 19-18 dated today, with all staff findings and conditions, taking away the restrictions on when you would dim the parking lot lights, maintaining, if you're okay, you said with the 16-foot lights for the parking, and no restrictions on the uplighting of the temple for the lighting purposes with the dark score ordinance, in conjunction with what we had agreed previously. And then a note to staff as part of the ordinance to put for the plating, and so that similar to what we've done in other areas of the city, like the baseball park, just making sure that people are aware, even though I will joke that people are going to pay a premium for these spots, but that's another story, that they are aware that there is a tall, large structure that will be lit and have activity upwards of 20 hours a day.
Michael, do you want to jump on the plat and the titles like we've done before?
And the titles, yeah. So that's a more of a direction, but that's not like officially for this, but that's a cited direction. But the motion itself is there will be no lighting and restrictions on the uplighting.
You're asking Kevin to work with the applicant
Yes,
to get
on
that.
that part. So, but that's not necessarily the ordinance, but that's an ask for staff to work with you on getting that for the platting and plotting of the individual titles.
Okay, I'll second. I have a first from Councilman McComber. I have a timid second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the applicant if they're comfortable. I mean, this is something that we've done in other places with on the plat or the title, just so people know what they're getting into, and it tends to protect the home builders, the seller, or the land developers, the city, et cetera. Do you have any concerns around that?
You're just asking for it to be on the Village 1B lot
1A.
plat, and you're not putting it on the residences surrounding?
Yes,
Yeah.
on the 1A.
You're
So on their
talking
titles, it will just say they're aware that there is a large structure
It's just
that's
basically,
lit.
yeah.
Are you talking about Founders Plat A? That would be Village 1A
Yeah.
with all the single-family lots.
It would at least be the ones around, not
With
necessarily
Oakwood
along
Homes
Founders Boulevard,
Development,
but the ones around.
we had put on the plat that they're next to a baseball park, lights will be on till 11 midnight. There's also an RC airplane park that will be there. You move in, you may have a crash.
We've also done similar things with agricultural uses, saying, hey, you're next to an agricultural use that was there before you. There may be
You're next
snow.
to a
They can shoot
feedlot.
animals.
They can shoot animals that are bothering their livestock and things like that, so.
So it's not part of this ordinance, but it's not part of this approval. It's something that we're just saying as a note to work with them. So it's not requiring it as part of the approval, it's just asking staff to
Sure,
work with you if
sure.
that's something that you would
Okay.
be open to.
Well, we're open to work with staff. I would just caveat that it's a different entity that controls the single-family lots, and so I can't speak for them.
Right. So that's why it's not part of this, but it's just something that he'll be able to work with the
Kevin,
quote-unquote applicant.
with this ordinance, will you follow up with Thane Smith with SLR?
So it's not actually affecting this.
Ask for clarification too. So you covered a lot of things in your motion. I didn't notice that you covered the hours of the lighting.
There's no
in your-
limitation.
Okay.
I said
But
there were no
direction for staff to clear that up in the community plan and the village plan.
You can, I don't think there's ambiguity, but you're welcome to if you think that's something you would like to do.
Removing restriction on lighting times.
Cindy's got it in
lighting
the
times.
motions.
Yeah, basically, I think in my motion, I said that there were no restrictions on lighting, on the uplighting,
And hours of operation?
no hours, no restrictions.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
I think that's what no restrictions means.
Councilman Wilden?
Just clarifying, Councilman McCombert, on working on the plat, is it part of the motion?
It's not.
Okay, so it's not included in the motion?
It's not.
We're
Part
just
of the motion
asking.
as far as direction to the
It was
staff.
just direction to staff, but it does not affect whether
Their
they
approval.
agree to it or not. It does not affect our approval of the lighting.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. I will do a roll call vote. Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Porter? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got 3 quick items, 2, 3, and 5 on business items. The contractor pre-qualification for Grandview Boulevard Sewer Bore Project, Resolution R 19-30.
Thank you, Mayor. Jeremy volunteered me into coming down here at the last minute, so I apologize for that.
That's all right. You can fit with me.
I made a couple of brief exhibits here for you. I wanted to, Mark, I'm sorry.
We don't have a microphone, so recording's not taking.
I will not speak.
Thank you, Mark.
Yell incredibly loud.
Thank you.
Okay. This is why Mark's sad he's not here tonight, right? Is this topic?
Somewhere his eyes twitching.
Yes.
So this particular project is a project of opportunity. We feel it's an extension of the sewer project that you guys have been obligating funds towards for the last year or so. We have an open piece of property. It's actually owned by the LDS Church on the southwest corner of Grandview Boulevard and Redwood Road. I understand it's under some sort of application right now. We feel that it's time to get in there now, get a bore pit. We'll need a great big bore pit to bore underneath that road. I handed out this exhibit for you to kind of get a feel for all of the utilities in that road. There's no way we can open cut that road. This is probably the highest accumulation of utilities of any area of the city. It's kind of ground zero for water lines, sewer lines, dry utility lines. There's a lot of small little lines there that probably don't mean a lot to you, but every one of those utilities have a problem, have a big problem if we try to dig around them and install a sewer line 10, almost 20 foot deep. So anyway, we've cooked up a scheme to bore underneath Grandview Boulevard. This bore is about 279 feet long. It's going to be not only under all the utilities that you see in that road, but it's got to go under that large water booster station. That's about 11 foot tall. It's just a monster concrete vault, and we've got to go under that. We have to go beyond that to make this connection. So, going to be an expensive project. Once we started doing some geotechnical work on both sides of Grandview Boulevard, we found that there was a large accumulation of large rocks down in the depths. We wanted to be bored there.
That's what the rock was at the entrance there.
So we now have a very deep sewer line with a lot of utilities around a big vault, underneath a big vault, with a lot of large rocks. We need to bore it. Now we need to hire contractors that have hand-bored large diameter sewer lines like this on top of a large diameter sewer line, which I didn't mention. So anyway, here's the bad news. The bad news will come when we get a bid for the project. No. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the contractors who bid on this are qualified. We put out pre-qualification documents on SkyQuest for 2 or 3 weeks. We've got some good qualified bidders, 4 of them, and we'd like to move ahead with your permission and go to the next phase and ask for pricing for these 4 contractors. You know they're all qualified, and so we'll come back to you here in a few weeks with some costs on the lowest qualified bidder.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'm amazed that you were able to find 4, given the people, the situation you're in. It sounded like it was, you're gonna have to bring somebody in from New Jersey or something.
Actually, one from Denver.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, large diameter, you have all the interesting aspects of
people who did the big dig.
Pipe, deep sewer, big rocks, lots of utilities. It's gonna be a lot of meat on the bones. It'll be fun.
So what you were telling me earlier, this was just to avoid disrupting the mayor's commute, is that?
Priorities, Wilden.
Regardless of this, I'm willing to make a motion.
Disrupting the entire southern end of the city's commute. Right. Because if Grandview closes like that, the whole city in the south fails.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
We would be disrupting the commute of people that have had their commute disrupted for a number of years.
Yeah, we're ready to be done. We're ready to be done.
For those who don't understand my sense of humor, that it's not just the mayor. I'm very supportive of this project, so.
Transportation corridor,
Yes, yes.
If you would have heard the
Are you
mayor's
going or
joke,
am I
think
going?
you should tell your joke.
I'm going since I,
Go.
whatever. I'll move that we approve business item 2, resolution R 19-30 dated today.
I'll second.
Okay, I have first from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? Councilman Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Comber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podesta?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Owen, you had some?
Just ready for the next item.
Okay. Thank you.
I move that we approve.
Mayor,
Item.
item number 3 involves a company that I work for, Zions Bank Public Finance. I'm not compensated in any way related to this deal, but to avoid, and there is no direct conflict of interest, but in order to avoid a conflict of interest, I'm going to recuse myself, leave the room. I do want to point out that the materials says Zions Bank Public Finance. It's actually Zions Bank Corporation, N.A. Zions Bank Public Finance does not do any loans. Just to clarify.
We'll be sure to fix that in the motion.
No, it literally.
Proper name.
It literally, that's the
It's
wrong
not possible,
company.
right.
But I don't know how you're voting, I'm just saying, so.
Get out of the room already so we can do this.
What?
Get out of the room so we can do this. I move that we, I move that we get Wilden out of the room faster. Move that we make him jog.
Should just step out that.
All right.
Where's Chief?
He's right there.
Chief's here.
Do you have anything you want to say, Chief?
Just give me the money.
All right. I move that we approve business item 3, changing the name from Zions Bank Public Finance to Zions Bank Corporation in a,
Proper name, whatever it's supposed
Just
to be.
Zions Bank
Zions
National.
Public, so whatever the proper name for the loaning organization is. Resolution R19-31 dated today.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilwoman Barch. Any further discussion? Councilman Podeska?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
And Councilman Wilden has recused himself from this vote. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Anybody want to make a motion to bring him back? Just kidding.
I waved him.
No? Oh, wait.
Make a motion, we close the doors on.
I just saw Michael wave.
I did that.
Not with that thing.
Not with the middle finger.
Okay, item 5.
Hey.
Yeah, we did 2, 3, and 5. Is that you? Who's item 5? Okay.
It's Gordon's item, but it is a reimbursement for a storm water project is in relation to the Star Haven project. So any questions you have, we would be happy to have.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Sorry, it's a system improvement.
System improvement, yes. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
We approve Star Haven Villas LLC Infrastructure Development Reimbursement Agreement, Resolution R19-32, dated today.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilwoman Barch, a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously,
We're going to do the minutes. We're going to do the minutes real quick.
if you'd like.
I move that we approve the minutes for May 17th and May 21st, 2019, with any submitted changes.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Porter.
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have item 4, code amendments, Title 1904. You're on. Oh,
Mayor and council, this is a combination of a staff request as well as one that came from a business owner in the city. Initially, I was going to put them as separate. You can, of course, make separate motions if you like, but I thought we just would group these together. The first one would be Amendment to Chapter 1904 under the land use zones. We'll go to that one first. As we all know, Saratoga Springs is now the location, a future location of a state liquor store. We're actually working behind the scenes with the property owner now, working on a concept subdivision plat where that may go. No official applications come in yet for the liquor store, but we all see that on the horizon. So currently, right now, a liquor store would be a conditional use in the industrial zone. One of the problems is we don't have any industrial zones currently in the city, and that's not the location where they hope to locate. And so we suggest, recommend moving that to the regional commercial zone as a permitted use. Now, also, we would then strike alcoholic beverage package agency. Now, what a package agency is, it's typically a very small location where they can't go and build a 8,000 square foot, 10, whatever size store they have, or it could be located in a resort, something like that. And so if there's going to be a liquor store in the city, probably don't need to have a package agency. Most likely, we're not going to get one, don't need one. And so we would recommend, and the Planning Commission recommends, striking that out as well. So that comes along from the Planning Commission at a 5-0 recommendation as well.
Okay.
The second amendment came from via McDonald's. They would like to, they initially came to us with a sign permit, said, I want to put LED reader boards for the drive-through. We told them the code doesn't allow that right now. So the next step then was to come back to the city and request a change. So what this would then allow would be specific to reader board signs in a drive-through that you could go LED. Doesn't open the door for anybody else. So it'd just be LED. And of course, the restrictions here with colors, with changing, it'd have to be shut off when the drive-through is not open. We feel the staff that I think it will work what we have. And with this as well, the Planning Commission also recommends 5-0 of approval of this request as well. And I do believe we do have a representative of McDonald's here tonight, if you care to ask them any questions.
Okay.
And so the Planning Commission recommendation is to approve both of these requests. And again, obviously, you have the option to continue or deny as well.
Councilwoman Barch?
I'll make a motion, but just before I do, I think it makes sense also with the LED boards. I appreciate the fact that they're going to turn them off when the drive-thru's done and they're not flashing and they're not video and all that kind of
It's
stuff.
not bright white lighting,
Not bright white
lettering.
lighting. It makes sense, so it works very well.
And it's the future, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, so that, it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, so if anybody else has comments, I'll move to make a motion.
I was just going to suggest at the end where the Las Vegas Bowl thing is crossed out, replace it with Traverse Mountain.
Seriously.
Their big sign.
I move to approve code amendments in item 4, including ordinance 19-19 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilwoman Barch.
Second.
I have a second, Councilman Wilden. Any further discussion on the motion? Porter?
Aye.
Barch?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podeska?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have reports. Since we're going out of order, administration, do you have anything?
Just a reminder that Splash is next week. So Splash Days is next
Hooray.
week, and a lot of events that hope residents and council participate in. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Gordon does,
Council?
apparently Gordon does have one.
Gordon's got something?
Ranches.
You're on.
You're on.
You're just.
All right, speak up.
Okay. I attended a meeting today there we go. Attended a meeting today at UDOT about the design of the signal at Aspen Hills Boulevard. And so that signal should be in place by this fall.
Perfect.
That's great.
Okay.
Before the fall festival, that'd be awesome.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be fantastic.
Council, any reports?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilman Porter.
All right. This was after the retreat. I was thinking about something. I would like to ask staff to do something, so I'm going to need some backup from the rest of the council, some support to direct staff to do this. But I really think that we need to look at options for completing Foothill Boulevard in a shorter term than maybe what MAG considers timely. And so I would like to ask staff to come up with a better estimate of the price, because we had a $10 million spread between what people thought it might cost to build. So if we could get it, plus or minus $1 million, and then also bring back some legitimate funding mechanisms that we could use in order to pay for that.
I support that too. So
Me
you have
too.
two.
Yep.
I think council supports it. Okay. Perfect. Other reports?
Yeah.
Councilwoman Barch?
So Utah Lake Commission held, in conjunction with the June Lake Sucker Recovery Program, the annual Utah Lake Festival.
I saw the pictures.
This last Saturday. It was super fun. They had over 2,500 visitors within 4 hours.
Wow.
So it was a phenomenal success. They had free paddle boarding and sailboats and all kinds of games for the kids and free fish. I mean, everything literally. It was just an amazing opportunity for them to use the lake. And it was really fun. I was at the Utah Lake Commission booth for most of that. And it was really fun to hear how many people had never been to the lake and how many people had never been to the festival, who may have been to the lake once or twice but had never been to the festival. So it just keeps
New
growing
traditions,
each year. Yeah, and it was just it was a great experience. So I appreciate everything the Lake Commission has done. One of the best things is they kept talking about how we got numerous questions on, well, can we go in the lake, or is it, all full of algae? And so it was really great to be able to.
Not this year, at least.
No, well, not this year, but even last year, there was the
Our side never really
misconception
got it,
because there were the algae blooms down in the Provo
the
Bay
harbor, yeah.
and in one of the harbors, but not in our area at all. So here was this massive lake, the largest freshwater lake, I believe, outside of the Great Lakes in the United States.
West of the Mississippi.
Yeah, and most of it is usable, and we don't get to use it, so it was really fun. Also, Owen and I had the opportunity to attend the Utah League of Cities and Towns Economic Development Study Group. That's going to be going on this summer in preparation for this next legislative session. That is, our goal there is to kind of look at all of these different economic development groups and kind of put a policy in place for the cities in general, so we can have that united front as we're going to the legislation, to the legislature this year. One of the problems that we've seen is that we have GOED and we have UAC, and we have, there are about 7 or 8 different, actually, didn't they say 11 at our meeting? 11 different economic development groups. outside of our city economic development. And so what place does the city have? What place do these other entities have? And how do we coordinate and collaborate and work
Consistency.
together? So I think it'll be a good group going forward. We've got another meeting coming up mid-June or something like that. So we'll keep working on that, but I think it will be good. You can definitely tell there are some agendas on the board.
Of course there are.
So just making sure that
Agendas? What?
what? Political agendas? Yeah. But just to make sure that, not just the large cities and not just the rural areas, but those of us in high-growth areas that have a completely different setup and goal and what we're trying to accomplish.
Sure, yeah.
We also have our voice heard there, so it was good.
I like that.
Any other?
I just, David, not that we have to do here, but are we set for the parade for the council, for our transportation? Because I know we were going to maybe talk to the ranches about getting the golf carts there.
No. We're going to need the council to find their own modes of transportation for the parade. We haven't been able to get golf carts or any of those sorts of things. So whether you're able to get a vehicle or something like that, not only that, is our staff member over the parade has some personal things going on, and we're having to fill in for her during that time. So we could really use the council finding your own modes of transportation for the parade. If you're having troubles, just come talk to me and I'll see what we can do. But right now, we've not been able to find golf carts or anything like that like we have in the past. We've tried getting a boat to tow. We've tried the golf carts. We've tried looking at getting ATVs that just...
The banners,
Which banners?
Our names.
city council and mayor.
I'd have to check with Darcy to find out. Chief's saying Darcy has them, so, yeah. But, yeah, I apologize. We've been running a little rant lately, trying to, I can tell you more. It's more.
That's fine,
We're working with some personnel stuff that, to
So we probably don't
get
want
it
to have
taken
like
care of, so.
inconsistency that would affect, so we'll talk offline as the council then and figure out what we can do that there creates consistency. If we all do cars, we should all do a car. Some people shouldn't be in a golf cart or an SUV if some are in cars. So we'll work it out. Okay, we'll take care of it.
I think it just.
I'm not driving an ATV with Michael McComber sitting on the back.
That's fine. I think it just depends because based on, and it varies from year to year, and I've only been to the one last year, but I don't know in the past when you have city council members that are running, sometimes they like to do something different if they're
If they get a spot,
campaigning
or they
that
go
year.
behind, or they have their own.
Yeah, and so, I don't know, we'll have to kind of coordinate that.
Okay. Got any, Wilden or Tedesca? Okay. As far as reports, two things. One is baseball season for our first season's wrapping up. Owen, could we have Heston come kind of give us an ending cap if he's ready, where we ended up?
The pounds of sunflower seeds on the fields.
Yeah. Okay. The other one is this Thursday, Councilman Porter and I will actually be meeting with the county commissioners out in Eagle Mountain, with Eagle Mountain, to discuss some roads out here that go to businesses for regional significance that would be a draw to some of the community we're after and the recreation pieces. And so we're going to meet with Eagle Mountain. We'll see if Lehigh wants to come too, but the county commissioners will be there also. Okay. Okay. We will close, what? Okay. We will close the city council policy meeting and move into the city council work session. Okay, Wildflower, Camp Williams.
Continuation from last meeting. This time we do have a representative from Camp Williams, Paul Raymond, with us. So per the council's request, we have Nate Ship with DAI and Camp Williams here. So to continue the discussion and move forward. So Mayor, I'll turn it to you and how you want to continue this. Thanks.
Anybody have comments? Or we'll let Nate.
Is Camp Williams here?
Can I invite Paul to sit at the table with me?
Yes, please. Do we have a representative from Camp Williams?
Would you scoot? Yeah, so let's start with, we really appreciate your time. We appreciate being able to sit at the table with Paul. Paul and I go way back, so this is going to be great. Wildflower Take Two, I think, or something like that. There should be an orange dot next to it. And action. Okay. And is there a way I can scroll through this? So this is the map, and I'll say some of this for the benefit of all. This is good. I like to share it. It's able to.
You keep moving further away, Nate. Weird.
For the record, he's encroaching on the space. Not just in this development. So Paul and I have talked at length through the ACUB process. This was the plan that we brought forward to the council. This is the plan that you and I have discussed. We had the wash that goes up through, kind of running east to west, dividing the property north and south. And we understand, and I want to make sure I'm clear to say that what we've heard from you loud and clear is that anything on the north side of that wash is more sensitive than the property on the south side. The whole valley up there, we understand to be sensitive to what your operation is, and again, we're very respectful of that. And we would like to proceed in a responsible development manner as best we can. And so with that, this plan highlighted the fact that we have reduced the amount of ERUs that are north of that wash significantly by over 100. But as we had conversation with the council, there was still some concern that we brought up of, well, there's still units that are up against that north side of the wash, and what can we do, and really where is the sensitivity. And so this shows, and I've done my best here, guys, to overlay our plan on Google. This is the limit of my technical ability. So untitled map and other things, this is not coming out of my marketing department. This is me doing the best I can. So wanted to highlight a couple of things along with that conversation. We have maintained a open space buffer all the way around. We have done what we discussed, which was to provide a primary access that would come off of Wildflower Boulevard or Harvest Hills Boulevard, or we end up calling the west side of the mountain corridor. We're going to argue for a name change there, but whatever we end up calling it there, you can see our intent is exactly what we have talked about, which is to provide access that goes up and ties into the corner where your gate is. And as well, we have intended on having a far west access point to camp as well. So our hope is, we heard you ask for one access, we're trying to give you two. This is an interesting area. It shows, as you zoom out, kind of the topography as you go up the mountain. You can see the main camp road is basically running on the north side of the layout. And what we heard from the council was the area on the northeast corner, right where that finger is very sensitive. And I'm still trying to understand how best to respond, but the conversation revolved around even entertaining, potentially granting additional density somewhere else in the project to remove density here. We took that, and I'm going to come back to this map. We have some limitations, but we took that, and I actually sat down with the engineering department, Gordon, who we have a three-part ask that goes along with the next slide. But if we can move density out of this area, and Paul, what I'd love for you to do today is help us understand if that's a 20-acre site or a 30-acre site. The council looked at kind of the dividing line of the top lot there as being that whole corner area. But this is just in concept with a three-part ask. If we take the density that was in that northeast corner, Nate?
We have a mouse that you can use, so the council can see where you're pointing.
Okay. You want me to use the mouse?
On a touch screen.
I'm seeing exactly what I'm touching.
Well, and
All is seen what I'm saying.
I can see the northeast corner. I'm capable.
Okay, let's see. Oh, there we go. Oh,
He did say it was pushing his technological skill, though.
You gotta hire someone, man.
Northeast corner here, you can see we've pulled all the density off.
About how many units?
That's 20 acres. And I've not added a single unit in additional density. I've gone and I've pushed them to the west.
You just equal transfer.
Transfer.
Equaled 1 for 1.
Yep.
Okay.
Up the hill. Now, the question I've got that I'd love some conversation with Paul on is the area that we're now preserving without units on. Am I just replacing a problem for a problem by moving them over in this area? If we have to, if we're going to affect camp, I guess what I'm saying is, can you give me some direction? Because I can do this with some help from engineering and getting those homes up in there. And I can make this bigger. We can actually,
Because next to the road, you're worried, is that what you're saying?
I'm just wondering, because I don't know where your sensitive land really lies.
So, the closer you get to that corner on the east,
Yeah.
it is more sensitive because we have firing points. Camp Williams has firing points in this area. And so this area is more sensitive. This area up in here is just adjacent to the road. So we try to treat that road with magnesium chloride to keep the dust down and everything we can to mitigate along that road. I mean, the bottom line of everything we're trying to do is just trying to reduce the complaints from citizens so they have a good experience where they live. And so this area definitely is more sensitive. I know there's been, so that this would help. This would definitely help. And I also want to say that Nate has been great about
The views are going to be amazing.
preserving some access that we requested.
That'd be worth a few days a
giving us
year.
additional access and just working with us, the previous owners of this property, never even got it appraised. Nate's even got it appraised. And he's done a lot of due diligence to try and help things work together. So about a quarter mile out, so basically along the
Let's see here. My slides go on.
I was just gonna talk briefly about the, so Camp Williams airspace actually exceeds out from our boundary about a quarter mile. It goes from ground level up to 10,000 feet. And so the concerns that we have on our end is that we can't have any drones flown like at all, like in this area, because we're still gonna have Blackhawks and Apaches flying. Shoot drones out. You know, there would be the one kid that brings down a Blackhawk with his drone. It would be bad. So there's just some concerns that maybe some things we can mitigate. When they actually own the buildings, that they can sign agreements that they know that. Put it on their title. Put it on their title. They know they're still ongoing military operations. Things like that.
And it's not 24/7.
No.
365 days a year.
No, it's not, but they randomly fly aircraft through there.
You randomly fly aircraft over my house and you're breaking the law. That's okay. My house is broken away. They come in and out. They shook the whole house.
Last time I talked to the planning commission, there were 3 Chinook helicopters that flew over Saratoga that shook my house. Those were not ours. And I tried to tell them, they're like, yeah, whatever. They belong to the.
You can just slam it on the Space Force.
But we could put it on the title.
Yeah. so
We just talked about that earlier.
But, so one question that I've had, I know that there's been discussion about allowing them to move density, but part of in moving density did not allow them to move their value, the entire value. And so I had some people from the state VA out here actually looking at this area today. And so if it's a realistic number, whatever you would lose from when you shift density to what that value is, the state VA, that's something, they said, they would go and get the state to try and maybe offer you compensation for what you may lose in moving that density. And that's something that we just discussed this afternoon, and I don't even know if that's a reasonable ask, but it may be a solution if it's, but I don't know what that number is.
Sure.
And so that's something that.
So if we're talking about additional, if we have additional homes moved, because right now he's at 1 for 1, he hasn't technically lost value, but if we take out more houses
Then
to
the
west,
VA might be able to help compensate
That's
for
what I'm saying,
that.
they would get.
He's
involved.
going to explain.
Is that's in looking for the veterans cemetery? Is that what they're?
That's what they were out there looking at. They absolutely love the area for.
It's gorgeous.
Cemetery, and they showed a lot of interest in
What?
co-locating one with the city.
How much acreage is the state looking for that?
They're looking for 30 acres.
And then how many?
And I mean, I know that we've discussed co-locating a city cemetery next to it, perhaps on, if we can somehow work that
Is
out.
that 30 acres?
The cities wouldn't be.
Is that 30 acres plus whatever this?
We need some more too.
Yes, 30 acres plus the city, yeah.
Plus with the city. But I guess what I'm
So
asking.
30 total.
No,
No,
30 for him, probably 15 for us.
Or
So
30, we need at least 30.
I don't, whatever,
just say 50 for sakes of argument.
Okay.
20 for the city and 30 for the state. But, so if the city was allowed to move the density down a little bit, and we can figure out what that loss would be, and then with the entitlements basically stripped off that property, then we could probably purchase the property. Once the entitlements
We can do some density.
are either moved or, and it's just a
Well,
thought.
and so what I discussed 2 weeks ago with the council was, I don't think we're gonna get there, if all of it is placed on moving density off, then we're not gonna get there. Just because of the realities of what we're dealing with. But I think we can do a combination of several things and find something that will work. At least I'm hopeful that we can do that. For instance, by me moving unit for unit over, right, I haven't lost a unit. I'm not asking the city to grant more density. I am now developing in an area that's more expensive for me. And so by talking with the engineering department, I think there's some things that we can do internally that the city hopefully is willing to entertain from an engineering standpoint.
Nate, what are some of those, yeah,
Let me talk
Okay.
you through them. The first is that this yellow is zone 4, and the pink is zone 5.
you're talking culinary, okay.
So in order to service homes in the zone 5 area, I would, under your existing plan, need to build a zone 5 tank. That would be a completely separate tank. I think if I work with Gordon, we can figure out to build like a zone 4.7 or 4.6 area tank that will service these homes with minimal pumping. There will probably need to be some pumping that would be an ongoing expense. I asked Tavis, the consultant who's designing some of these tanks, to maybe give me a cost estimate of what he thinks that would be, and he seemed to think it would be in the neighborhood of $300 to $400 a month in pumping costs.
for the entire area spread out.
For that additional area,
For all that
which
pink.
really is less than a rounding area in your overall
Right.
water budget,
right? It's pretty.
That's what, like
You're talking
100
the-
units or something in there?
But you're talking the pink area, right? This
Yeah.
4.7, if you would, okay.
So
$3 or $4 a
I
month.
think we can, I don't have it completely designed, I didn't have time, and I didn't want to go spend all the dollars necessary at an engineering standpoint if we were going in the wrong direction, because I didn't know how sensitive this area is as opposed to the other, and I didn't want to just be moving density over and then have you say, wait a minute, that's just as sensitive to us, right?
It's all gonna, I don't know, I think it's all gonna be sensitive, but it's not as sensitive as it is.
How much is the yellow square, this the
That's
northeast?
20.
That right now is 20 acres.
So we would need potentially another square and a little bit, so almost to the playground. Is that a
You're gonna
playground?
almost go to the playground.
That's the playground, that black thing in
Yeah,
there?
and that's where I said, just moving density, I don't know that I can replace unit for unit, all of those units if we do
Well,
a.
that's where we need to negotiate.
So I've got to go figure that out. I was really hoping I could come in today and say.
No,
hey,
it's
we're
fine,
not
it's a
gonna
lot,
need-
it's a lot.
And it was,
Well, we appreciate the
Well, I think I can
movement.
I think I can get at least another 10 acres. I think I can get another 10 acres of homes up into
Goes
that
up, and then
pink
it
area.
takes away the whole shooting area.
So that's, I told you there's a three-part act from an engineering standpoint.
Okay, so that's one.
That's one.
Culinary water tank.
Can, just real quick, can you explain, I think Councilman McComber explained it to me, 4.6, not quite understanding.
Oh, I don't need to go all the way up to a zone 5 tank. I can raise the height of
Okay.
where the zone 4 tank currently is located by a little bit up the hill and then supplement the rest with a pump.
Okay.
We wouldn't be able to use this to service any other zone 5 areas in the city.
Which I
It
don't
would just,
think you have anywhere else.
right, it would just be
Yeah,
to
further
service
down.
your
No,
area.
no, I got it. I was wondering if that was like a mini tank or, whatever. Got it.
Excuse me. Nate, refresh my memory. Was my concern, where I thought this was would be a concession on the city's part, is you were talking about moving storage all the way up the hill such that the next zone down would be fed through a PRV. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so right now, the design is to have a storage tank above Zone 3. The storage tank would be in the Zone 4 area.
That's the yellow
You'd pump to that tank, and then by gravity, you would feed Zone 3. But what Nate is describing is moving that tank farther up the hill such that all of Zone 3 bleeds back down through a PRV. And there's inefficiency there. You're pumping it up the hill to have it flow right back down. That's where the concession would happen because it would be an inefficiency.
Inefficiencies into the
And that's where the roughly 350.
Yeah, assuming that we're going in the right direction, I would like the opportunity to come back to you and quantify what all this means, so that we all understand what those inefficiencies.
Well, yeah, we're talking in broad strokes right
Right
now.
now, I'm talking big picture,
Yep.
right?
No, we'll do it with campaigns because they can do
Okay.
that.
So the second part of the three-part
That's my
concern
understanding.
is secondary water. Right now, I'm not planning on building any facilities that would accommodate secondary water up into that zone 5 area,
The pink area.
the pink area.
Requirement is there.
And I'm assuming that when we're talking cemeteries and other open space, that the capacity of the secondary system that I'm currently planning on building in zone 4 needs to stay at that capacity to service that area, because it's gonna need secondary.
So I'm not sure that's right, because Paul, haven't we talked about doing a tank together, right?
well,
Well.
Canada's said they would provide irrigation for the VA and for the city for cemetery.
That's assuming they're next to each other so that we can,
Right.
So I just need a solution.
so you wouldn't have to provide city with secondary water.
For the,
Or Camp Williams, we'll take care of whatever open space there is there that we're dedicating
So I
when.
just need to figure out a solution to get water up into the pink area, because I don't have a pond up there and I don't have any storage up there right now.
Right.
is it 100?
So Nate, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're asking is for the pink area, through the same tank that we were just talking about, this drinking water tank, he would propose to be irrigating the pink area.
Culinary water.
Like we've done in
With
other
that.
areas.
We're metering.
And,
How
of
many-
course,
We can
of
still
course,
meter it.
Yeah, how many
Of course.
homes are we talking about?
Well, it depends on the size. If we stay at 20 acres, then it's, 100 something. If we go to 50 acres, then it's,
just depends on the size of how many we try and push up the hill.
Okay.
And of course, he would be buying this water in the first place. So he would buy that water from the Central Utah Water Project. He'd be paying a premium for that water, and then that water would be used.
The residents would be metered just like they would anywhere, so they would,
So you'd still build a dual system that if we ever got a tank up there, we could plug into a secondary water system?
Again, I'm just
In
trying
theory.
to offset the cost. So right now, the question is how do we get back to ground zero?
You need to
Ground
have
zero
both
today is
systems.
no secondary system, no dual system at all.
He would just build the one. So how would you, like, would we just have a crossover?
There wouldn't be a secondary system. There would be one system, and that system would be used to irrigate lawns, but these are relatively small lots, aren't they? Or,
They don't.
they're not gonna have a ton of plants.
and so it would be like the old days where we used to irrigate with drinking water.
Gordon is correct. In order for this to work, I would need to buy a premium fluoride water right.
Right.
And somebody's gonna use that right to water their lawn. I would look to offset that premium cost.
By not having to install this.
Build a secondary component of the system, the secondary system, right?
The yellow area would still have a secondary system, it'd just be the pink area.
It's just that they
Yeah.
gravel.
Okay.
So I have a quick question. That big square there in the, sort of on the left side, in the middle there, it sort of goes out.
Yeah.
What is that?
So that's type 2, it would be similar to,
Do you know what I'm saying? Is
yeah,
it,
I'll get-
is it because it's too steep?
I just, no, it's just I haven't put the units in. So it's similar to,
We've never laid that area out.
it's similar to what you'd see in here.
So is it just
Or in here.
not laid out, or can we move some of the homes into there?
You're preliminary.
We've already signed density
We're
to
already
it.
assigning density to that
To
area.
that
It's fairly dense
square.
already.
That square's already got, it's just not showing here.
Just not showing there.
All of that, the
Yeah,
bottom.
that whole
This
thing
this whole
is fairly
thing.
dense.
And then over to the right, all that has got density in there too.
Yeah.
All of those, all of that and all that, okay.
This isn't laid out. Now, this is laid out, there's a potential trade-off here. This is currently a school site. But it's that balance of you plan for an elementary school and we know how many homes are gonna be in there and reserve space for them, or you come back later and have a conversation with the school district about the fact we didn't reserve space for them, and so they gotta buy units.
So, I don't like to say this, because we don't ever like to talk about this, but I think this is one of those areas where, we talked about the fact that we appreciate you taking out all the higher density type housing, but this is one of those areas where it doesn't hurt to have some condominium units or some apartment type units.
Especially on the.
On that south side, you're up against the mine area. It helps you then condense
Buffer it.
that infrastructure. It actually makes it cheaper because you don't have to run infrastructure as far, and it services more houses. It's
And
not
it
a.
buffers that.
And it buffers it, and you have a little bit of, you have other housing types, so it's not just all townhomes and those kinds of things. It's not a bad idea to have some of it in this big of a project. You look at the success of some of the larger developments, like the Saratoga development, like the Harvest Hills development, and you look at Wildflower, and the successes are because you have a multitude of housing types. And we do have our, referendum that we look at and stuff, but where you're adding a very small number and keeping it kind of within those bounds of 73%
And it's a
single
win-win because we
family.
need a cemetery.
Yeah, and you get the cemetery. It might not be a bad idea to reconsider just some of that.
We'll need to reconsider. I was hoping we'd get away with 20 acres.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to.
We're there. If we're gonna go bigger, then we're gonna have to have all pieces. That's what I mean when we're gonna have probably some concessions on the engineering side. We're probably gonna still have to come back to you and talk about density, additional density. We do a analysis internally that's basically a per acre yield. So we look at, say, this area down here, and I'll do a yield per acre that we're getting out of that product type. And if I go ahead and add extra units to that acre, I have to start with the yield that I'm getting currently, and so the extra units just don't carry as far, because I'm already starting with a smaller, more dense product there, because I've already tried to pull off the 100 or so units out of this area and push it down already. So I'm really trying to avoid having to come to you and say, I need an extra X number of units to make this really pencil.
But I think that's where we're at. But I think that's where we're at. I know, and I appreciate you doing a one-for-one, but to Councilwoman Barch's point, I think we're at the point where we need to seriously consider the density question here. I'm looking at right along the line there between the road and the green, the light green at the bottom.
Yeah.
Over, no, to
Your
the other
other
way,
direction.
the other way, right? All that yellow right there. That is where I think we could be looking at some better density, because right now it's mostly townhomes, I think, in there. But that might be where we can get some, and we talked last time, the whole, it's not a one-for-one, house to apartment, we get all of that. We can work through it. My last comment, and really this, and I think, I'm again willing to consider that, Councilman Barch, I think she's, and for us to say that.
I know, I don't know how to respond to it.
Okay. Because the two of us, we're about as hawkish as it gets on this, on density.
I've been arguing for less density, and the council's been telling me to.
So.
Well, that's the thing, that's the thing though also, right? It's not really.
We're gonna show up and they're gonna say add more, we're gonna say it doesn't pencil to add more. As soon as
I mean, that's the thing, is part of it, this is not just adding density, it's the types, right? Because you're intensifying the density, not necessarily increasing the density always, but intensifying the density, so you're not having to drag infrastructure as far. And so you're not having, so it does help mitigate some of that loss of this type of housing.
And also, you're not stuck with just this little peninsula. You have the freeway, the Mountain View Corridor Freeway that we could, I mean, you can go back, I mean, this is Wildflowers becoming one project, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, don't think that you have to like try and plug and fill everything, all the transfer into this little space. You have a huge project between all of your development. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we like worrying about just filling it all in here? There's maybe something where you can do in one of the other areas as well. So my last thing I want to say is where you've taken the 120 acre, it doesn't necessarily have to be a perfect square. And because of the shooting, if I'm not mistaken, it's this kind of approach. And so we might even take it on an angle as a wedge so that the playground and there's like some homes that go around there, but you're almost taking it down on an angle so that it's like that, something along those lines. So when you're working, I'd like your feedback there, like where would be the nice line? Because it's also a noise thing, right?
We have some maps with some noise contours. I don't have any with me, but those maps actually.
They do.
So that might be
Because
a
how
guiding-
the topography
guiding point.
affects the sound. And so those would be great maps for you to get.
I haven't talked for a while, so I'll talk.
And I'm done, but I'm done.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I've actually got them.
I think it's also, to Councilwoman Barch and Councilmember Converse' point, I think it's worth repeating that the current zoning for this already contemplates some types of condominiums and apartments. And so it's not, it's not increasing density for density's sake, it's just putting things where, where it makes sense and where it will work. Because, I think the reality is, somebody's not going to want to pay $400,000 for a nice single-family home that's next to a mining operation, just like they're not going to want to pay $400,000 for a single-family home that's right next to a artillery firing point. So we're trying to make sure that, the apartments, if we end up going that direction, are in places that make sense.
Charge admission. You missed. A win for us, really, is to keep the homes as far away from that road as possible, away from the fence. They can meet the contour lines, that's great, but we don't want Nate and his development to lose any of the value.
Right.
If we can accomplish both things here somehow, and end up with cemeteries, I think it's a win for everyone.
I would agree. And I think that's what I was at least trying to get across last time is we want to make sure you're made whole on this. And if we can get a city cemetery and a veteran cemetery, that's so much better.
And protect residents.
And make the future residents live in a much nicer to live in area, because I think that it would become somewhat of a complaint problem for them, if they move in, even if they sign on the plat saying that 5 years down the road, they forget that they signed off on that and they start complaining. So I think that, but we want to make sure you're made whole, but you also, we have to be careful that you're being made whole and not whole plus.
I don't mean to see we're not trying to go.
No, and I appreciate that.
I do have some questions, so I got Paul in the hot seat.
Yes,
I've heard that there's a concern for noise, and I've heard that there's a concern for dust and travel along the road. flying drones. Are there other concerns? There was shrapnel issues, or are we in a?
That's the firing point.
Danger zone of sorts?
No, there's no shrapnel, there's no debris. The surface danger zones for that area is mainly.
Weldon load it.
So there's no danger from anything close to an aircraft going down or something like that.
That could go anywhere.
But that can happen anywhere.
Right. Just Paul, in one of our meetings, I don't remember, you talked a little bit about the fact that the sheet flow off of this area is historic. I just wanted to make sure, there was some concern that camp has a historic flow drainage off of that area.
That drainage that goes, yes, it's quite substantial.
So that, I don't, that may not be a military concern, but it is a neighboring landowner concern, so.
And our current, that doesn't change whether we do anything or
Right.
do with that.
Yeah.
And our current storm drain plan that we've been working on addresses, there's actually 3 main drainages that come down from camp.
Okay. Okay.
You're already aware of it.
So,
And you're dealing with it.
We've talked to the Corps of Engineers about this, and they will not allow the military to do anything with those drainages. They've never been touched. They won't allow them to.
That was kind of what I was getting at, is I knew you guys weren't able to do anything to mitigate it, so just making sure that you're aware you're gonna have to bear that burden.
Try and help with that, they won't allow us to.
The Corps is their own special thing.
So because it's such a large amount of water.
This property may be subject to the sounds of freedom.
Burdensome on us to do with what we're looking at, and also working with UDOT.
No drones.
Is the historical flow that's coming through. We're actually passing through at the historic rate.
Bring that up.
And down, and it's actually getting into the UDOT system. And
Okay.
picking it up and handling it.
Okay, good,
so
good.
another thing that we've kind of been mumbling about up here is one of the things we can, would be really kind of fun to do also, because it would highlight Camp Williams as well, is literally having little signs of, this is the Camp Williams compatibility area, a military compatibility area. We
Sentinel
support
land.
our, this is our Sentinel land signs, no drone flights, there will be noise overhead, those kinds of things. It doesn't hurt to have that actually there, very visible, so that 5 years down the road, they don't forget, right, that they signed a paper.
It is. So state law 257 actually designated this whole area as a central landscape. And so we have discussed, and we're going to have some meetings come up about putting up signage, just letting people know what a central landscape actually is. Just very important to the protection of the training area. And it doesn't, we shouldn't really bother anyone other than just let them know there's current military operations going on, there's going to be aircraft in the area. But they do try and coordinate that. I know the last artillery shoots they coordinated.
Yeah.
It was great.
Oh, and I appreciate that we've been able to get it out on the city Facebook page when that's going on.
They've done a good job. We try and do our part to, we just don't say we're going to shoot, we want, we try and let you know. So we want to be good neighbors, just like we plan on being here a long time.
Right.
So
We plan on you being here.
we want to help those even
Make it work.
Even with these guys. Maybe we'll have to play DAI in a softball game. Yeah.
They're good.
That's a good one, too.
Softball players. They bring in rookies that they say are in the guard.
Remind me, Paul, what is the Guards softball team's record?
We're all Patriots, right?
The police threatened tickets.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Or maybe not.
Are we driving for, it sounds like a balance. Are we driving, we got to cover the sensitive area in this kind of shape.
Yep.
Is there flexibility in the acreages? I mean, it's one thing if I hear, no, you got to be at 50 acres because that's the only amount of acres that will accommodate the two.
Well, we have to look at, I think for both camp, for the Veterans Cemetery, and also for us, we need to look at what we're going to need. And at a build-out of 110, 120,000 people, it's going to be a fairly significant size. So a 5-acre cemetery, obviously, isn't going to do it for us. I think that's something that if you want to work with staff, and maybe they can look at some of the other cemeteries around that are similar in size.
Shane Bennett on our staff actually was a sexton in another cemetery, so he's done some of that.
Yeah.
So work with them, but, I mean, more the better, and again, we're willing to work.
Is the cemetery, as I've heard both, I understand that it would be for Saratoga City.
Half.
Is this a private cemetery, or is this a public cemetery?
Public.
What I'm asking is, can this cemetery be considered a revenue source? Because if I can use that to offset some of the lost density that's moving up, I'm not double dipping here. If I can have this as a private cemetery, there's some revenue that I can use to sell that. It would be open to Saratoga residents, but it would help offset my costs.
We have always talked about being open to it being a private cemetery. We would love to have a private company come in and run a cemetery, but they need to come in now with it, yeah.
We'd be open to
But
that.
when I do my analysis, and I'm trying to be.
We have no problem with that.
Yep.
If I have to donate this ground to the city, and you just take it, that's one thing. If I can bring in a private operator and I can sell them that.
Does that cause problems with the water?
It could cause problems with the,
Because you have to provide it to
Oh.
a municipal.
as long as it's city or municipality, they would provide it. If it was
Can we have like a 100-year lease with a company?
Where they,
Does that cause problems if it's still technically city-owned?
What if we put a public easement over the top of it, and water rights, or the watering of that?
Okay.
You work on that.
I'll ask that question.
You guys can work with the Terminator.
Seems like that's no different, I mean, we're gonna have private parks with public easements over the top of them.
And it seems like,
it's whatever works with, so that we can use the water, because we can't, just like you're having trouble getting the water up there, we would have the same trouble, so.
Councilman Wilden is very anxious for a
I'm sorry.
comment.
well, it's been so long that Chris has been gone, I don't even remember what I was going to say. No, I'm comfortable, like, we've entertained this. I don't know that we've done it before, but to work with Camp Williams, if we needed to take ownership and then lease it out or something, I don't think from at least my standpoint, that would be any concern. I think that's a regular occurrence in other areas, but it may not work per state code or something like that. But, and I'm going to throw Nate for a loop. I'm totally opposed to higher density, but I'm open to higher concentrations. It's just a choice of words. I'm being stupid. So,
He's a politician right there.
no, but,
Taking notes for my next presentation, the heroin.
no.
There's a difference between higher density and
higher concentration.
Well,
Can I plug you on that?
well, you know what? You actually can, because Councilman Porter was talking about this has been approved for higher intense uses that you don't have there. So we're not necessarily increasing density, we are increasing concentration of homes. And we're doing that to make things work for you, we're doing it to make it work for Camp Williams. I'm just being silly about the choice of the words, but from the public standpoint, whoever's watching it, it really is just a higher concentration of homes for the betterment of the city. So you don't need to come back and call it, if you want to, that's great, but I'm just.
And this is going to be the safest cemetery in the country.
So what's been discussed before, Nate, I'm totally open to. I was thrown for a loop, but I am totally open to that. It's just a choice of words on my part. You didn't even smirk, you were just like, ah, crap.
Shock from earlier when Shelley and I.
So, I appreciate it, I really do, and really, guys, this is a unique situation with a city that we have a long-term relationship with, and we really appreciate being able to sit in a room and have these candid conversations with the political environment and the sensitivity to the issues that we're discussing. By no means are suggesting that they're not sensitive. We get it, this is a big deal to you as residents, and density is it's a 4-letter D word that's,
Don't worry about analyzing what I said too much. So
He's going to use it, though.
you're more than welcome to use it, but honestly, like, I remember a different part of the city, a developer wrote in, we're selling these homes for high-density product, which is 1/3 acre lots. And that's nonsense, what they were saying. It is higher concentration. I'm talking about some property against Lehigh annexed in. It's higher concentration, it's not higher density, but whatever you want to call it, I'm supportive of making things work for all parties.
Perfect.
See, Mayor's trying to push me along, so.
The good thing on this area is for veterans, is they might get flyovers every funeral.
Whatever, I actually think a lot of these houses, just like the temple, there'll be people who there'll be people who want to live here just because they want to like watch when you're having your event. They'll charge admission on their back porch.
Hopefully not of Chinese descent, right? Not that came absolutely wrong.
You just made a Wilden comment.
All people who spies from any descent. Okay.
That was totally a Wilden.
Cindy will fix that.
Trust me, she'll help you out.
Strike that from the record.
She'll help him out.
So what I do want to stress again is that it sounds like we've got the makings of a deal happening.
Yes.
We've got, Camp Williams has come to the table with some funding mechanisms that are potentially there. We'll continue to work with them. There's the piece of
The water situation.
Yeah, so we've talked, my 3 engineering questions. We've talked culinary water, we talked secondary water. The third one is road grades, intersection grades, and block grades. I've got to be able to get up the mountain. And the less steep my roads are, the more I have to grade down. I can offset some of that by running longer roads without intersections. Longer blocks. And so,
Again, I would work with, it's a unique.
I've talked to Gordon about it, I've talked to Dave about it. I just want to bring that up in open session so that hopefully they're getting comfort level to be able to continue these conversations.
I mean, the reality is up till now, our city, we've been building on the flat part of our city. And as we start building up those benches.
We're gonna see this more.
More and more, because when you go to Provo, you get up on the benches and they've got steep roads because they're on the side of the mountain. You're on the side of the mountain up here, so, I mean, I think if we can make it work. As long as fire gets involved.
I think that's part of working on our hillside ordinance that we've been working on, right, Gordon? As we've been
Yes.
kind of going through those areas.
We gotta get our first responders involved too, though.
But yeah, I mean, I want to make sure that people are still safe and that we're doing this the right way, but if we can look at some solutions that'll help.
Actually, to answer the question about the engineering standards are what they are, and regardless of, what am I trying to say? The engineering standards and the hillside ordinance, it isn't going to say, well, if you're on a hillside, then the standards can be not apply. So they are what we've applied them as liberally as we can under the published literature. And one thing the only thing that we, the only liberty that we haven't taken so far is maximum street slope of 15%. Right now it's 12% if it's not served by a bus. Well, the literature would support 15% if it's purely residential and not served by a bus.
By the time UTA gets out here, we'll have hover buses.
Yeah.
That's what we'll come back to.
We won't be alive.
Yeah, work through that.
The question is, as you go through the planning side of it, connectivity and being able to get, over to your neighbor's house, how far do you really have to drive if you're just going to go around the block? Can we accommodate some of the pedestrian accesses rather than road accesses? If we can't get up a hill, the reality of that is there will be children who live up there, and so now they're
But the
walk.
thing is, it's within the walking to a bus stop.
Well, so they're gonna have to walk to a bus stop.
In my neighborhood, there are people who walk farther than that to get to a bus.
Uphills both ways, probably, yeah.
And in the winter, in the snow.
Yeah.
And so as we go through that analysis, again, it's gonna take a little bit of each of these to make it work. And we'll come back to you with, we're gonna go to this on our cross-section for our roads, and it means that buses may not be able to get here. We've got a more concentrated area of density in this location. And we're gonna go back and forth with, being able to find a sensitive area. So
Well, and it's not the whole area either, it's just up in like the pink area, some of
Pink,
the
right.
steep areas up there, it's not the whole thing.
That's what we're working.
That little area.
The exceptions
Okay.
are those few.
Do you have the direction you need?
I think so. Brian, do you have any other questions?
Staff, do you have the direction you need?
I think you got the
Okay.
sense.
Clear as mud, yeah.
Camp Williams?
No, sorry, I kid, yes, I've been taking notes, and obviously we have a lot to follow up on.
Paul, do you have?
I don't know, all on the water issue for the cemetery. And then if we could, at some point, if we know what that factor is, then I can approach Gary Barger with the state VA and bring him into the discussion. He's got no problem doing their part to make this happen.
Great.
Perfect.
Sounds like
Okay.
everyone has the right attitude towards this.
Perfect.
The only other piece that I would just reiterate again, and your staff's been accommodating this from my last request, which is if we can continue to process the amended community plan, there are parts of our plan that, regardless of how we lay this out, just need to be addressed, and we're anxious to keep.
Well, we need to keep you moving forward. You got to start making money sooner rather than
I
later.
can't stop, so
Okay.
I just
That's
have to say
acceptable.
that.
That's
Yep.
acceptable.
Gotta keep moving.
Nope, that's
And it
fine.
would just be considered a major amendment, so it's fine. When we get this.
And if you wake up in the morning and think this was a dream, as Wilden would say, this is recorded on YouTube. You're welcome to watch it.
All the good is that things that I've said.
That's true, that is on there. The minutes might be okay, but the YouTube is still there.
No one watches it, because if they did, like, I would be kicked off on you, so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening.
We really do.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for your time coming in.
With that, we will adjourn the meeting.